Hello and welcome to episode 78 of The Thing About Golf, our ongoing quest here at Golf Australia magazine to find out why people get so obsessed with this game. Joining me on the line now is this week's host, John Huggan, who sat down recently with one of the game's more interesting characters. Huggy, we all too often think modern golf is bland and lacks characters, and that's sadly often true, but not in the case of your guest for episode 78. Tell the listeners who they'll be listening to for the next hour or so.
Yeah, well, he's always been one of the more, not only one of the more interesting people, but one of the more interested people on the tour. Nicolas Colsaerts, former Ryder Cup player from Belgium, first ever Ryder Cup player from Belgium. He's one. He laps into cliche, but he's a cool dude. Is Nicolas? He's a little bit different. He thinks differently. He certainly plays a little bit differently these days. I mean, he's one of the people who's suffered most from technology, I think, because of the advent of the introduction of the hybrid clubs, which have taken away the talent that you require to hit long irons, because there is very, very few people in golf, if any, that hit long irons better than Nicolas Colsaerts.
Yeah, indeed. You mentioned there he's not only interesting, he's interested. That's kind of what makes him interesting, isn't it? Because he reminds me a little bit of Clates and Jeff Ogilvy in that he brings a perspective beyond just golf to his thoughts on golf. And that's always, I think, an interesting intersection.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not the best thing to be if you're a one-dimensional professional golfer.
No.
Rounded is never an advantage, but he's definitely a rounded person. He's got, he's interested in all kinds of things. He's a big music man. He loves his music, way beyond my level of expertise in that area. But he's a terrific guy. I've always enjoyed him. He's a great guy to go and have dinner with. He speaks about 3 or 4 languages, as you'd expect from a continental. He played a lot in the UK as an amateur, and as he says, he picked up a lot of the British sense of humour from that time of his life, and he kind of gets that stuff, which is unusual sometimes.
Indeed. Speaking of sense of humour, the last thing I want to finish on before we go to the interview with Nicolas, I'm fairly certain, Huggy, you said something along the lines some years ago. I think you caddied for Clates at a Heineken Classic down here in Australia. What did you say about Nicolas Colsaerts after that round where you were paired with him?
No, that you're thinking of Christian Sever, the French lad, who was slower than treacle. I mean, I wanted to kill him at the end of the round. He was so slow. But no, Nicolas is not. He's a quick player. He's exactly the opposite. That's
not what I was thinking. I'm pretty sure you told me that when you walked off, you said to Clates, "My goodness, that lad can hit a ball. What a shame he's got no idea how to play golf."
That's that. No. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's me that's confused. Yeah, you're absolutely true. It was very early on in his pro career. Mm-hmm. And we were, in awe of the way he hit the ball. But you're right. At that point, he hadn't quite learned how to play properly, but he certainly did that subsequently.
That's telling in itself, isn't it, Huggy? Because there are few pros who do that. You go to a professional tournament, they all hit the ball well. It's very difficult to stand out in that sort of company to the point where caddies and other players look and go, wow, he's got something.
Yeah, if he's hitting 3 irons, people do stop and watch. There's no doubt about that.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to stop and listen, Huggy. I know you enjoyed this chat. I enjoyed this chat. I hope the listeners enjoyed this chat. Here we are, Nicolas Colsaerts. Thanks for taking some time.
My pleasure.
My guest this time around is one of my favourite golfers. I can say that because he's sitting across the table from me. But Nicolas Colsaerts, all the way from Belgium. Here we are in St Andrews. But I always start with the same question. What was and is the thing about golf for you?
What was golf for me? I think the first word that comes to mind was freedom. I was an only child. I grew up playing a lot of team sports, and being an only child, I always had to sort of live in my own little fantasy world, and having just golf clubs and a golf ball was, a thing with me where I could let my sense of artistry come out and play shots and find out that this was doing this and this was doing that. In a golf course, there was some sort of canvas.
Mm-hmm. You can kind of lose yourself in that, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, when I was young, I remember just like, my parents would just drop me off at the golf course, and I'd see them again at 6 o'clock at night. And so that's why I think freedom is probably the word that comes to mind.
Yeah. And why golf? I mean, I know you're from a pretty good sporting background. Your grandfather, I think, was in the Olympics.
My great-grandfather was in the Olympics twice. He was head of delegation for the basketball team. He did the 20 games in Antwerp in Belgium, and he did the 36 games in Munich. He was actually in the stadium when Jesse Owens, won.
Did he see Adolf?
On the sprint, and I think he might have seen when Adolf decided to go somewhere else. But yeah, so yeah, there's always been a big sporting pedigree on my father's side. So basically, the only thing we ever did on weekends was sports, whatever it was, field hockey or my dad cycled a lot, being from Belgium. That's kind of like one of the standard things to do. So there's plenty of pictures at home. If you dig deep into the old photo albums at home, there's a lot of sports in there.
Yeah. And so why golf for you then?
Why golf? Because my dad also played field hockey for about 25 years in first division in Belgium and decided to hang up the boots. And the most similar sort of sport was golf. So he started only a couple of months before me, and then again, I mean, I would always follow my dad's whatever sport he was playing or doing, and so I started a couple of months after him. Gave me a shortcut 7-iron and a bucket of balls, and that's how it all started.
Yeah, and how soon did the addiction kick in? Because it always does for kids at that age.
Well, I kept on playing a lot of sports, a lot of hockey, a lot of tennis, anything with rackets, whether it was tennis, squash, back in the day. But the first time, he would kill me for saying this, but I remember, he was giving this men's length club to try for maybe a new set for him to buy, and he was like, this is too long for you, and blah blah blah. And I took the 5-iron and I had some amazing shots with it. So that day I kind of realized that I knew more about this than my dad.
Right. Yeah.
Quite early, I think I would have been like maybe 12 or something. And I remember sticking on the wall in my bedroom all these things that I would cut in magazines, whatever they were, like clubs or golfers or golf related stuff, and it was right by my desk in my room. So I very quickly had a strong relationship with the sport, and I always identified myself quite strongly with the sport. But I think when I got to 13, 14, that's when I realized, like, this is really for me.
Unusual in Belgium, though. I mean, it's not exactly. I mean, there's been some good players. I mean, going back to Flory van Donk in the 50s, who undoubtedly would have played in the Ryder Cup had there been a 100%. European team.
Yeah,
I mean, no question.
Yeah.
But there's not a great history of Belgian golfers down the years. I mean, how did your friends react to this? Disappearing off to the golf course at every available opportunity.
Well, then again, I mean, being an only child, I always felt a little bit of an outcast, even at school. I was probably one of the only kids in my class whichever school that I went to, that was doing this amount of sport in the first place. So I always felt a little bit different than others. And so, that, I would say that kind of, not triggered, but shaped me into not doing the normal thing. I always think that also, parents with kids, the choice of school is very important. And in my case, I was put into wrong schools. My parents had no idea what to do with me in a way.
Yeah.
And I ended up in the wrong schools, and that almost pushed me even more into feeling that I was different than others, which in a way I think helped me, because coming from Belgium, like you said, I didn't really have a lot of examples coming from where I came from. So I had to find the information somewhere else. So I started traveling on my own, playing the amateur circuit in Europe and the UK. I remember playing Lytham Trophy and Brabazon and stuff like that. I was like 15 and staying on my own in B&Bs with the Belgian Federation money. So I kind of had to do a lot of stuff, or we had to do a lot of stuff by ourselves, just because there wasn't somebody that really took me from a young age under their wing, because there wasn't really anybody that could do that.
Yeah, so you were a pretty independent soul pretty early then, it sounds like.
Yeah.
You've always been, it strikes me, I know you reasonably well, obviously, and you're definitely an independent thinker. I mean, does that stem from having to be at an early age?
Yeah, I think I was always shaped into and again, we go back to being an only child and having to find my own way of doing things, and sport and golf is a sport that basically fell on my lap. I mean, I couldn't have dreamed there's not a sport where you have to practice on your own as much as golf. So it all these things put together. I mean, I'm not saying, I mean, it's still a miracle to make it out on tour when you look at how many people are playing this sport professionally, in any generation. But I was extremely lucky to out of nowhere, coming from a country that doesn't have history, to be able to be this good and still navigate through all the holes and the potholes that there is along the way.
Mm-hmm. Was there a, light goes off moment where you think, I'm good enough for this, at least to turn pro and have a go at?
No, I think quite quickly. I mean, when you play all the national team stuff, I realized quite quickly that I was the best in Belgium, just because I was winning the junior championships. I was shooting better scores at 15 that some of the guys were doing at 18. So I was always the first to do, or the youngest to do things.
Right.
I was playing, the Belgium men's team when I was 15, and I was never, not ashamed, but I've always thought, like, I mean, I can do this. I can play against guys that are older than me, and I have nothing, or there's nothing I don't have that they do.
Mm-hmm. What age were you when you turned pro, and what age were you when you hit this tour?
So this is a funny one. So I went and played PQ1 and PQ2 at the end of 2000. So back then, PQ1, PQ2, you could still play as an amateur, but if you went through PQ2, if you qualified for Q school, you had to turn pro.
Yeah.
So turn pro heading into Q school, which back then was in Soto Grande and San Roque. And I decided to turn pro on my 18th birthday, the 14th of November, which was on one of the practice rounds 2 days prior the qualifying school started. And I was leading the thing after 4 rounds.
Yeah, impressive.
Well, it's funny. I was talking about it today with one of the guys I was playing the practice round with. I had no idea how much my life could change so quickly. If I knew what the consequences were of winning a tour card, I don't think I would have flown through the qualifying school as easily as I did.
Right. Yeah. Well, why do you say that? I mean, were you completely ignorant? You can't have been.
I had absolutely no idea. I always had the dream of playing on tour, but I didn't realize that, that if I win the card there now, this week, in 2 or 3 weeks' time, I was going to tee it up at the Halford Dunhill Championship in Houghton in Johannesburg.
Right.
That never crossed my mind.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. And what was Q school like? I mean, it sounds like you sailed through it, but I mean, there's all kinds of nightmare stories from Q schools. I mean, you clearly haven't experienced that.
No, well, not that early in my career. I just went to Q school like I was going to play the European Amateur Individual Championship, where that had been an environment.
Thinking like an amateur at that point.
Yeah. Well, I always say also that if you had a TV crew following me my first season on tour, I mean, it would be an absolute blockbuster, because there's so many things. Well, I had a lot of fun doing it, but we just couldn't have made worse decisions.
Well, give me an example. Come on.
The best example is probably coming back. So I go out Tuesday morning. I think this is like my 5th or 6th event on tour. We're in South America, in Buenos Aires. And we go out Tuesday night, and I come back Wednesday morning, I think 6 o'clock in the morning, just completely plastered, and bumped into the guys that were going into the bus to go and play the Prime on Wednesday. I mean, like, stuff you don't see anymore, but I was 18 and I mean, there was a lot of very suspicious decisions made.
Well, the tour was a bit different back then. I mean, the psychologist, the old guys always say the psychologist was the barman serving them drinks back then.
Yeah, I mean, I was never really a big alcohol guy. I mean, I used to go out a fair bit, just because, it was my way of living, at that stage. Don't forget, I'm 18 and having nobody to take you under your wing. I mean, I basically, it took me a long time to really understand what it takes to be a professional golfer, how to do things, how to go about your business, and also at the same time realizing that I was jeopardizing my potential.
Yeah. And how good was your game at that point compared with the rest? I mean, how did you you must have had a look around and thought, am I going to be all right here?
No, not at any stage.
No. See, most people do.
Yeah.
That's odd that you didn't.
No, I never did. I'm not a guy. And even now, I mean, having, a certain amount of skill set, and I've always had since I was 15, 16. Like, I mean, I'm never amazed by skills, because I mean, of course, now my golfing DNA is a bit different. I mean, my short game is not as good as when I was young, but I'm never impressed by the skill set of somebody. The thing that I'm impressed with is the frequency at which these guys are doing it.
Right.
Like, I'm not impressed by a shot, but I'm impressed at that same shot done 8 times out of 10.
Right.
That with age, I become impressed with.
Yeah. And, how, I should have looked this up.
Well, you didn't come prepared.
I plead ignorance. Well, semi-prepared. I did take some notes. How good were you? How quickly? I mean, you're talking about 18-year-old.
I was good. I mean, I think, the best example is Didier de Voet, who, won the European amateur individual in at the end of 90s. And the first time I played with him, I was 15. And he only admitted this to me, 10 years after, that he said the first time that he heard me hit an iron off a tee, he was like, oh, my reign is over. So I always understood that I could do stuff that other people weren't doing as easily as I did. So I always believed in, and I've always marched to my own beat as well. I was like, if I saw shots, I was taking them on. And like, I'm not saying that it always paid off. Of course not. But when you're 18, 19, 20, 21, and you see shots, I mean, if you don't take them then, like, you will never take them in your life.
Yeah, it's always struck me watching you that you're prepared to fail by going for shots that some people wouldn't.
Well,
you're not worried about the other side of that coin.
Well, I mean, there are numerous shots that I would like to be able to take back. I mean, there's one in Sweden in the late 2000s that turned out to be basically a shot that didn't allow me to keep my cards on a Sunday in Barsebäck. But then, when I look at my whole story, that happened, and I went down into a really dark place for, 2 or 3 years. But then I came back in 10 and ended up doing things after that maybe I would have never done if I would have stayed on tour and maybe took things a bit for granted and didn't really have such a reality check.
Yeah. You've kind of touched on this, and I was going to bring it up anyway, but and I've written this a few times about you, and I've always used you as an example of somebody that can hit long irons high, like nobody else. Very few people in golf, I think, can match your prowess with long irons in your hand. But the thing is, you've lost a lot of that edge because of the hybrid club. Yeah. I mean, I've watched guys, and I think you've commented on this, that you play with guys that can reproduce the shot that you've just hit with the 3-iron with their hybrid, but they couldn't come close with a long iron. I mean, in that sense, technology has not been kind to you.
No, but in another way, it's also a skill. I mean, take an example like Miguel Angel Jimenez. I mean, he's probably one of the best fairway wood players there is. Hitting 7 woods and 5 woods and finding pins with that 5 wood that other guys can't. I mean, it's just.
I mean, I'd get a bit pissed off, I must be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, there are other things to change in the game before banning the hybrid. I mean, if you look at average Joe, the hybrid has basically saved his life.
Yeah, so talk about pro level, yeah.
So there's nothing you can do about it. But I mean, I still have a soft spot for 230-yard 4-iron to a tuck pin that comes, from the moon and lands softly on the green, and I think everybody does.
Yeah. And I don't see that, though. That shot's almost gone.
Well, I mean, you still have your, Rory. Schwartzel was exceptional at it. Ross Fisher is one of the best long irons up in the sky to stop to a dime. I was good. I mean, there's loads of guys now in the last 10 years that have developed, that skill just because of the speed and the equipment and the ball. I mean, the ball is basically what allows this, to be able to send a forehand into the stratosphere at 230, 240 yards and get it to stop pretty quickly.
What's your feeling on the big picture equipment wise, distance and all the rest of it?
Well,
you know me, I mean, I bang on about this quite a lot, much to your amusement, I think.
Yeah.
What's your feeling on it? I mean, where should we go? I mean, where are you guys going to play 10 years from now?
Well, I mean, the ball, yeah. It's just clearly the ball. I mean, like, the driver size, maybe 400cc max would be nice, to reward a certain level of quality of strike. But the ball is the biggest thing. Huh? I mean, I know you go on a crusade about losing all these amazing courses, and it's true. I mean,
they're the victims.
Yeah, I mean, no Sunningdale, no Pine Valley, and all that kind of track, and the ones that I grew up on. I mean, when you look at one of the, before we have this Soudal Open in Belgium now, we used to go to Knock, which is an amazing inland golf course. But when I look at the irons we were hitting into greens when we used to play the Belgian Open there with the Ballatas and the professional balls in the end of 90s. Yeah. And you look at the golf course now, it's just basically killed it. So yeah, I mean, it's a shame we're losing courses, but the only problem is the ball.
Would you haul it back? How much would you haul it back?
Yeah, but how can you? I mean, the other question is like, yeah, I mean, how can you? But yeah, I think, and sometimes it's silly. Sometimes I just look at numbers. I mean, you're out in the rough, it's downwind, the course is playing firm. You're expecting a flyer, and you can hit a flyer with a pitching wedge. It's going to pitch, 170 yards. It just doesn't make any sense. And
speak for yourself, by the way.
No, but I mean, everybody can inspire us a flyer from time to time. Yeah. But yeah, sometimes you look at a number and it's warm. It's 30 degrees. It's downwind, and it's like a fluffy grass, and you think like, this just doesn't make sense to hit a 9-iron, 180 and 190 yards if you catch it, a bit flash.
Yeah, so that's what I like about links golf. I mean, that you're going to be playing this week at the Dunhill on St Andrews, Carnoustie and Kings Barnes, is that the yardage is only a starting point.
Yeah.
There's another dimension to links golf, which is the bounce and roll of the ball.
Well, I played a 9-iron this morning into the first. The first was playing into the wind, and I think I had like 120-something yards, and I hit a 9-iron, and I don't remember the last time I hit a 9-iron from about 125 yards. I mean, it just doesn't... Yeah. It's a thing we don't do anymore. So it separates the one that are able to read the elements and shot shape and strike the ball correctly.
Yeah, I've written this a million times, but the golf at its best, certainly at the level that you play at, is an art form, not a science. At its best.
Yeah, I mean, science has been really helpful in the last couple of years, with the help of the things that we practice with, whatever they're TrackMan or Foresights or CJ quads and stuff like that, and fitting and all that kind of stuff, or even the way the clubs are made and the amount of stuff that there is for us to try.
Yeah.
But where were we at? We were talking about
just links golf and extra dimension.
Yeah. I've always also considered this a sport. Like, I mean, I said to you earlier, you're talking about a canvas, and okay, what am I going to do with this? How? Because everybody's different. Everybody sees a light differently. Everybody has different weapons to choose from, and some guy would be happy to smash a 6, somebody feather a 5, somebody cut a 4 against it. Yeah. So this type of golf still requires a certain level of creativity that is sometimes lost when you watch a normal day of golf on the PGA Tour when there's no wind.
Anyway, enough of this nonsense. So let's get to the Ryder Cup. That's what I really want to talk to you about. Yeah. You were part of the team, the famous team that was part of the Miracle at Medina, which is famous, depending on which part of the world you're looking at it from.
Let's see from our side.
From our side, yes, exactly. You played one of the most amazing rounds in Ryder Cup history, partnering Lee Westwood against Steve Stricker and Tiger Woods.
Talk us through that and what that was like. I've talked to Lee Westwood about it, and he just shakes his head. I mean, you just hold everything, he said.
Yeah, but it's funny because I went back to Medina for the first time in 10 years when I did TV commentary at Whistling Straits. And when you look at the TV footage or the highlights of the round, it looks like don't get me wrong, I hold a lot of putts, but on TV, it looks like I keep on holding these 20, 30 footers. Yeah. But walking on the greens again for the first time in 10 years, I realized that these greens were actually quite small. So I actually hold a lot of very makeable stuff.
Right.
The succession of them.
You hold all of them.
Yeah. And I missed a few actually.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, I missed a few. I mean, I lipped out. I shaved a hole on first. I horseshoed on 3. I missed a very makeable one on 6. And 2 putted the last. So, there's still a few more to make. But yeah, when you look at the way the match happened and what I was able to do, in a career you have your 3 rounds, and I'm extremely lucky that one of my 3 rounds happens to be my first round at the Ryder Cup in America, being shout out all day and playing with one of, our biggest European point scorer against arguably one of the 2 best golfers that's ever lived, and Steve Stricker, that also quite a decent resume. Yeah.
So what was that like then? And what sort of reaction did you get from Tiger?
Tiger was fine. I when I shook hands with everyone on 18, Stricker, I think had it a bit sour because he looked at me and went, "Good putting," and I was like, I think it's a bit. Yeah, I thought it was a bit of a low blow.
There's 2 ways you could take that.
For somebody that the putter was probably
he's made a living from being a putter.
I was going to say, yeah. But Tiger was good playing, man. So when you've got, it's like you playing Federer and you give him 6-2, 6-2, and he looks at you and go, "Well played." You kind of realize you've done something, quite good.
Yeah. What was your sort of feeling when you got into that? This is your first game, as you said, at your first Ryder Cup. It's all new. What were you feeling like before? Was it a kind of feeling of huge relief that you played that well? Or, what was going through your mind?
Well, there was a huge sense of relief when Tiger missed his 15-footer on the last.
Right.
So I two-putted on 18. And the funny part of the story is me going over to Westwood's, Tiger still having 50-foot putt to half the game, and I go to Westwood and I'm like, I don't know if I have the balls to watch this. And he looks at me with a big smile and goes, "Might as well watch it." Yeah. And so if you look at the images when Tiger's putt slips by, there's a bit of a shoulder drop, as in like you slowly realize, like, oh my God, what did just happen?
Yeah. The adrenaline just goes out of you immediately, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's maybe one of the reasons also that, that first round took so much out of me, emotionally wise, that I wasn't able to keep that level the next 2 days.
Yeah, because you played the next day as a result, I'm sure, of how well you played in that round in a game that you probably wouldn't have played in.
100%.
Yeah. I think you've talked to me before. Was it with Sergio?
Yeah. They want to ride the horse.
Yeah, of course.
So, well, of course. You've got this.
I understand why you were playing, but it seemed to me, you've told me.
It's a question to be asked as a captain, of course. Yeah. Like, what do we do with this?
Yeah.
Or we just rest him in the morning and stick to the 4 balls. But it seemed like there was already a bit of a sense of panic. Mm. And so I'm basically talking for the first time with Sergio in the car at 6:00 in the morning, heading to the golf course. We had never played together ever.
Right.
The first time that we looked at each other and winked at each other was at Wyndham, which was a month before that he won to get in the team. And I remember being on the first tee on Sunday, and I was maybe like 5th group out, and he came to the tee to get a pin sheet.
Right.
And it's the first time that we basically looked at each other, because he was also on a mission to try to make the team. Yeah. So was I. And that's the first time that we basically locked eyes one another. And this is a month before the Ryder Cup. We'd never played together ever. So all of a sudden you're playing a foursome with somebody that you don't even know the guy.
Especially foursomes.
I mean, if there's one format of play that where you need a little bit of understanding of one another, is definitely foursomes. Yeah.
Yes.
Or alternate shot, you call it? No, don't you call it? Alternate?
Stop.
I couldn't resist.
Resist. And you've used pin position already. I insist on hole location.
Sorry.
What's the other one? It was tied. I was watching the President's
Or
Cup.
double eagle. You love a double eagle, don't you?
God, come on. But this, I mean, tied. Whatever happened to
all square?
Yeah,
Square.
I know.
Yeah,
it's this great language of golf has been.
Jesus Christ, where are we heading? Where are we
exactly? This generic bollocks.
Let's change roles. I'm going to interview on where this game is going.
I know some guy from the USGA decides that you and I have got to use hole location. Oh God,
Jesus,
give me a break.
I know.
So, anyway, take me inside the team room at the Ryder Cup. I mean, what's that like? That's always a bit of a mystery to everybody else who's not in the team. I mean, what is it like? I mean, and Jose Maria, who's been on this podcast fairly recently and talked beautifully about the week that he had. I mean, what was it like for you mingling, if you like?
Well, I never had a problem to be into a locker room because I came from a team sport background. So I understand that for some guys, it's sometimes it's difficult to find your spot or how to act in an environment like this.
What was your role in the team? Everybody's supposed to have a role.
Yeah, I didn't have a role. I was the only rookie in the team, and I was just my first mission was make the team. My second mission when I got there was like, all I want to do is make a contribution.
Yeah.
And so, my week would have been a victory. There was never a moment in that week where I felt out of place because I knew I was playing well. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be there more than anybody else in that team. And maybe also one of the reasons why I had no problem showing up to the first tee and playing Tiger and Stricker. So yeah, I mean,
is that the sort of thing you're going to look back on when you're 60 and think, "Oh my God, how did I ever manage that?"
No, absolutely not. No, because I knew I always had that in me.
Right.
And I think I'm not a leader, but I'm not far behind. Mm-hmm. Like I remember also playing into a Royal Trophy where Chema was a captain and he sent me out first, and I absolutely hated it. Mm. But then a Sevi Trophy. A couple of years after that, I told him, send me number 2. And I felt 100 times more comfortable doing that. Like I'm not a leader. I'm going to be one of the not opinion leaders, but I will throw stuff left and right. I know how to look at somebody and go, this guy's doing okay. Don't need to. This one, just say something nice there because it looks like that can help, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I can read a room pretty easily, and I think that's quite an important skill set to have when you walk into a locker room.
Yeah. So, what impressed you most about the behind the scenes stuff?
The size of the thing, the size of the. But the first striking thing is I went before I got on the plane out of London to fly to the real gig. I went to Valderrama to practice for a few days. And I remember being at Valderrama and...
Why Valderrama?
Well, because because I won the match play at Finca, Courtesin.
Right. Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
And we were like, you know what? Let's go and stay there. And we actually struck a deal to go and hit balls on the polo fields. So it was just us with a trackman hitting balls, no shirt on, listening to music and just go away from I couldn't stay in Belgium and do that in Belgium. I mean, imagine in 2 weeks or in a week, I'm going to play the Ryder Cup. I mean, nobody would leave me alone.
Yeah. So was it that big a deal in Belgium?
Well, no, but I mean, people would know, and it would be just an absolute nightmare for a preparation. So we went down in south of Spain, and I remember playing in Valderrama, and I would bump into Swedes, Danes, Germans, and everybody I would come across go, come on, we're with you. And you realize, okay, like you're playing for all these golfers all across Europe. And that's the first time you realize, okay, this thing's pretty massive.
That didn't scare you then?
No, absolutely not. Not again. I was playing well. I was, I did. Yeah, but I did everything. And I think I showed my commitment to the thing and how important I thought, or how much of an important role I thought I could play in it. And you have to believe in yourself. Like, imagine walking into a locker room and being afraid of your own shadow when you're going to go and hit a first tee shot in Chicago with an army of drunken Americans shouting at you. I mean, you couldn't think of a worse thing to do.
Well, how bad was that? I mean, Paul Laurie he's been on this, and I know Paul well because I ghost wrote his book for him. But he told me once that he was heckled on every single full shot he hit at Medina.
Yeah, Listen, it was loud, and they were playing well, and it was definitely going their way. And yeah, the atmosphere and the fan interaction is just day and night compared to Europe. So yeah, I mean, I remember playing with Sergio, and Sergio would go back and forth and insult them in Spanish, just because it was a way of letting out not only our frustration but from the first couple of days, but only a way to give it back to them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, I mean it's difficult. Like, I mean you're really being shouted at in an aggressive manner at times. Yes.
The next couple of days didn't go so well for you on the course, but so your Ryder Cup was up, down, and then up again at the end because the team won. But yeah, where were you, how much of the Ian Poulter stuff on the Saturday evening were you taking in? Were you able to watch much of that? And how do you explain just what happened there? Because you guys went in, further behind than you were the night before, but then suddenly thinking you might win.
Well, everybody's always mentioned, this momentum thing, and yeah. Then again, I mean, it's a group of 12, and if you have the 12 on board and cheery and feel like something could be done, because that's the first time in the week where there was this positive vibe of looking at each other and really having everyone's back, which is basically the proper DNA and backbone of a team. Is like, I'm going to give my best because I expect you, and I know you're going to do the same thing. There was a different vibe after Poulter and Rory won their last game on Saturday night, and then everything fell into place on Sunday. But even when you go back and you look at that whole story on Sunday, I mean, it's just like one miracle after another.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that had to happen did happen.
Yeah.
Just about.
Not just our way, but miss there for the other side. Which, when you look at the first couple of days, except for me and Rory and Poult, like they were holding stuff from every direction, and not really a lot was happening from our boys.
Yeah. I've heard you talk about this before, and you've talked to me a little bit about it. Is how disappointed you were in your own performance on the Sunday.
Yeah, I was devastated.
To the point where you were almost in tears.
Oh no, I was in tears. I still say this now, and I think I gave the match away to Dustin Johnson. I 4-putted the 10th, and then I think I was still only one down. No, we're all square teeing up on 14, and I lost 14, 15, 16, game over. Like, it went from being okay, this could go either way, to losing 3 holes, game over, your Ryder Cup's over. BBC, mic in front of my face. She asked me 2 questions and then exploded in tears. I realized that my week was over and I could not do anything about it anymore, and I could not help anymore. And I think that's what really slapped me in the face and lost my marbles.
Does that surprise you? Did that surprise people close to you that you reacted like that?
No, absolutely not. And I think now, looking back, it is no coincidence that, I mean, I've always been quite a sensitive person, and now even more so because life in general. But I was always a softie deep down inside. Yeah.
That's softy. That's not a word I would have applied to you, but still.
Because the golfer, but
yeah, exactly.
People that know me would have not been surprised that when you're riding such a big emotional roller coaster, and it's a pretty exhausting week, and then when everything is done, and the pressure goes off, and the adrenaline is out. It's totally normal to just collapse.
But you didn't. In terms of you were the last man standing by all accounts.
No, last player standing.
Oh, last player standing.
There's
okay.
a few guys from the team that were still there, but they weren't players.
Well, talk me through that. What were the celebrations like? Wild, I can only imagine.
Listen, it's quite simple. From the moment the last match was finished until we got on the plane the next morning, I had a drink in my hand. And it starts right away. But it's more the faces and the outburst of joy from everyone, players, caddies, staff, the delegation that comes with whatever their British PGA or European Tour, or the fans that were there, the families. I mean, that team room was just, it was basically a frat party. Like an out of control. What's that movie where they go in Vegas? The four of them with the baby with the sunglasses.
The old guys.
No, the Hangover. Or something.
Yeah.
It was like anything went. Like if somebody was saying, "No, you cannot do this. Watch me."
Yeah.
Like
that scene from Animal House.
Like it was like it was on.
So, what were you drinking?
Well, I remember Westwood handing me the first vodka tonic at the press conference, and he kept on handing me vodka tonics until he couldn't take vodka tonics anymore. So I had to find another butler.
Right.
But yeah, I mean it's quite cool to actually have Lee Westwood as a butler. Your first Ryder Cup is handing me drinks.
Yeah. The press conference is one of the great things. The winning press conference, at least at the end of a Ryder Cup. I mean, the one at Medina, I can still see Graham McDowell at the end of the row. He fell asleep because he already had alcohol in him.
Really?
An empty stomach, running around all day.
Yeah.
2 or 3 drinks.
Game over.
It just knocked him out.
Yeah.
He was actually asleep.
No. I still had game back in the day. I mean, I hardly drink alcohol anymore. I mean, I wouldn't even last an hour. But in 2012, I remember Westwood also was saying that I've seen Nick in action. He's got some game. So, I mean, I definitely proved that night.
So how long were you at? Did you make it to your bed at all?
No. I think I slept for 30 minutes because that's one of the beauty of the Ryder Cup is that when I was told that somebody was going to pack my stuff for me,
right,
I was like, okay, let's have another one.
Yeah.
And I remember going into the bus in the morning, heading to the airport, singing out loud at the back of the bus with Westwood and his ex-wife Laurie, and it was. It was just absolute chaos. And the funny thing is that when we got to London in Heathrow, they all disappeared. Like Paul Laurie went his way, Westwood disappeared, Clarkey, one of the assistants, was gone as well. And I'm there on my own, and Chen, my captain, tells me, okay, you coming to do Sky News with me. So I'm doing Sky News the day after. As the only player, and I have no voice left. So if there is somebody that can find the Sky News interview the next morning at Heathrow with me having no voice, I'd pay big bucks for it.
Yeah. We need to move on from that. You gave the PGA Tour a try.
Yeah.
I always thought that there was 2 things that came to mind on that when I knew you were doing that, is that your game was perfect for that tour.
Of course.
But your temperament might not be, in terms of the lack of culture, for want of a better word, over there. I mean, there's only so many weeks in a Courtyard Marriott you can take in the middle of yet another town in America that looks pretty much like the week before.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment of your experience over there? And
I think it's a combination of things.
Because it didn't work, obviously.
I think it's a combination of things. I might have gone a little bit too early. I certainly did not managed my schedule and the amount of time I was spending in the US the best way. I should have maybe just go 3 weeks at a time, come back, instead of sometimes staying 6-7 weeks and only playing 3 or 4 out of those 6-7 weeks. So I was spending a lot of time there. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was a member at the Bears Club in West Palm, and it was an amazing place to spend time because it also allowed me to sit down with Jack Nicklaus 2 weeks before I was heading for my first masters and telling me stories about every hole.
Yeah.
So it came with also good stuff. But, I grew up in the middle of Brussels. I missed Europe. I missed my life at home because I was still living in Belgium back then. Whenever you go back to your hotel room at 8:00 at night, +6, everybody's sleeping in Belgium. So you're a little bit stranded. And, again, being from Belgium, different culture than everyone else. You've got your UK boys sticking together. I saw Sergio a little bit back in the day, but it's just not the same. They're not your people. I struggled pretty badly with living in America.
Homesickness, almost, is it?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I basically did a small depression. Without really understanding what was going on. But yeah, it was, I remember I still see the bench that I was sitting on at Houston. So we're in April 2014. And I remember being in this bench outside the clubhouse and I was talking to an Aussie caddy called Bassi, who worked for Jeff Ogilvy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, I just can't do this anymore. I just need to go. And he looked at me and was like, dude, if you need to go, you go.
Yeah.
And I packed my stuff and decided to come back to Europe.
How long did you?
Well, I started to play over there, I'd say about May 2012, all the way to April 2014. So a good 2 years.
And was I right about the way your game would fit over there?
Yeah, of course. I was in it 300 in the air. I was an unbelievable driver. Back then, I topped the chart in distance over here. I had an amazing second serve with my driver that would not leave, that would not climb more than, 30 feet for, 280 yards with
like
a
Tiger Stinger
with a 5-yard cut. I was extremely good with my irons. So from tee to green, I could have been like a Davis Love type thing. But when you don't grow up there, when you don't go to university there, I think, and I never really dreamt about playing the PGA Tour. It wasn't something that I grew up watching on TV, idolizing. It was just so far. And it's a big difference with the generation now. These kids are watching the PGA Tour and want to go and play the PGA Tour, and that's their dream. It wasn't never really a dream of mine. What I really enjoyed is that the quality of the golf courses that you get to play week in, week out. That's second to none.
Yeah. So why did you do it?
Because it's the chance of the sirens. You play well. You can go and play these $7-8 million events on very well managed your courses, and like you just said, your game would be perfect.
Yeah.
And then you think, yeah, let's give this a go, and it's all exciting. It's new, and you ask for one thing, you get 5. You get red carpet treatment wherever you go, and would you rather play in France? You're a football player. You rather play in France or you rather play in Spain or the UK? Mm-hmm. It's just very simple.
Yeah, it's almost as simple as, what do you talk to people about when you're there? You touched on that, there wasn't a lot of companionship. The things that you're interested in are not necessarily, if you're not talking NFL football. Jeff Ogilvy, who I know well, he played over there for a long time.
Yeah.
But he used to...
Comes from an English-speaking...
His father was English, yeah. So, yeah. But he told me that politically he leans a little bit further left than most of the players on the PGA Tour, which is not difficult because they're so far right. But he told me that he developed a kind of 90-second to 2-minute conversation that he could have with them on the NFL, which he had no real interest in, but
just to get involved socially,
so that he could have the 2-minute conversation with them and not touch on politics and then move on.
Yeah,
does that sound familiar?
Well, don't get me wrong. In 2 years, I have formed amazing friendships with people over there. I have met amazing people, but I used to spend a lot of times with the Callaway boys in the truck. I actually enjoyed my Monday to Wednesdays much more than I enjoyed tournament days, just because I had a click,
right? Yeah,
that I had a spot in and I felt comfortable in. So yeah, I remember I used to, I went and bought tennis rackets and stuff and left them in the Callaway truck, and we would play tennis with some of the boys early in the week just to kill time. So the Callaway boys have helped me, or did help me a lot back then when I was, when I didn't really have other people to hang around with.
Mm-hmm. Moving along, inevitably, we need to discuss live golf a little bit. What's your view on where we are at the moment with that?
Well, where we are with what exactly? With what they are proposing, or the people that have gone?
Well,
because it's two different discussions.
Yeah. Well, you start with one, and then we'll move to the other one.
I do agree with 54 holes.
Right.
I think 54 holes is a great thing to do. What I don't agree with the 54 holes is the shotgun and the team format. I mean, I just can't possibly think that a guy switches his TV on and says, I'm going to follow the Niblex. I like the Niblex.
Yeah.
That just seems like I don't buy into that. Wherever they take that team format forward. But okay, yeah, I understand some of it, but no. And then the thing that I don't particularly agree with is the way that some people have handled themselves in the process and are still doing now. I mean, it's just a bit sad to see guys that, I mean, a lot of people have said this, PGA week is that there is no relationship anymore because, it seems like, we might say we feel like they've been brainwashed, and then they're saying that we're the sheeps. So it doesn't seem like there could be a conversation going forward because the two sides are just as different angles and as different ideas and basically in the end values.
Mm-hmm. Would you have gone? If they came along
I think that
your time of life.
I think that listen, I'm going to be 40 at the end of the year. If I was still in the first or in the top 50 or the top 100 in the world, and they would have given me a 2-year contract to go play 54 holes tournament with no cut, with music, and enjoy my next couple of years and put my family at safe. I think I would have done it. But I think that I would have not criticize the tour that made me the way that some have done.
Yeah. Where do you stand on the human rights aspect of the argument?
I totally understand why people see it as a problem or something to talk about. But then the other hand, I mean, when, like I just said, if it was to put my family safe for 2 or 3 generations, that's, don't tell me that the human being is not a selfish thing, So, listen, I understand both sides. I understand why people have gone, and I understand why people have not gone. It's going to be very difficult just to close the book and not talk about this anymore because it seems like they are here for to stay.
Is there a solution?
Is there a solution?
Are they going to have to start talking at some point? Everybody says that.
Well, I think that everybody wants them to be able to talk and come to some sort of agreement. But is that going to be possible? I think with some of the things that have been said and the brashness of some of the decisions that they've made and some of the statements that they're making and everything, I mean,
See, that's my feeling, and I've heard this from many times, and I kind of agree with it, is that if they are going to sit down and talk, the two things probably have to happen first. Greg Norman and Jay Monaghan probably have to lose their jobs, because they've, as you just touched on, they've dug pretty deep holes for themselves, and there's no real way back for either one of them. But if you got rid of them and had, new faces, new voices sitting around the table, there would be some hope. Yeah,
it's true. I think the having these two guys in a ring would just be an absolute bloodbath. So I don't think with the people in place now, they could be a solution moving forward. I think you're right.
Do you have a solution?
Who am I to have a solution?
Well, you've got an opinion like everybody else.
Listen, I'm just a
you're just a golfer.
I'm just a golfer from Belgium.
Yeah,
consider his life to be an absolute miracle, and what would I do?
It's not like you to back off. Come on.
No, but I think, guys, you've decided to go there. Stay there. Mm-hmm. We are here and we're doing our thing. You guys decided to go there. I mean, I think it's just like, it's just common sense. Because especially when you come out of here, I mean, it's just like, yeah. It's okay. Like, you just leave the poor people alone.
Yeah. Well, there's 9 of them. We're at the Dunhill Links, as I said, in St Andrews, and there's 9 of them playing this week. And we'll continue to play until February at least.
Yeah.
What happens if they win that court case and they can continue to play?
Listen, I don't know. I'm not. Thank God, I'm not in the board of directors of the European Tour, because I mean, you have to give in to them as well. It's been a serious head scratcher. So, I mean, I think both sides have done things wrong. They could have been a much smoother environment to involve in at the moment if decisions would have been taken differently. But it's listen. You have a business. These guys are coming with a much bigger business. You defend your business. I guess it's just like it's just normal stuff. I mean, if you ask people that are in finance and stuff like that, they'll tell you exactly the same thing. Yeah. So, why do you want to come and eat out of our plate when your plate is full? You have enough on your plate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of it you follow cricket, but they've got the IPL,
which was a similar thing, right?
Yeah, they kind of came along
as an example, as in like exactly the same
with
thing.
Huge amounts of money.
Yeah,
and they've kind of made room for them. They've got, I don't know how long the IPL thing lasts, say a couple of months.
Listen, I've had an Australian caddy for 12 years. I think I know all about
indeed.
cricket
and
and
an Australian wife. Never mind that. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So that seems to me like a legitimate way out of this. Ultimately, is that you give them a couple of months or whatever of the year, and the players go off and they make all their money, and then they come back and they play in the real golf.
Well, they do the same thing in hockey. They buy off players to go and play for a couple of months. Mm-hmm. And then when that thing is over, they go back to where they played before. Yeah. But have them completely separate. As in, like, if you want to have your thing, you do your thing for X. But don't just come and go like that as you wish. I mean,
the only downside of that scenario that we just painted is that guys who were offered money to go and didn't go, decided not to go, are going to, if you let them come back in, they're going to say, well, man, I should have just taken the money.
Yeah, but then it's a decision.
There's no consequences.
Yeah, but it's a decision.
But there's going to be big compromises if this is going to be solved on both sides.
This thing has been, in at every table in Players Lounge for the last year, and it seems like nobody. You ask me, what's the solution? I mean, no idea. Absolutely no idea. Change subject.
We're going to change the subject, and the last subject is certainly personal to you. I mean, earlier this year I wrote a story at your instigation over your health issues.
Yeah.
What's that been like? It sounded pretty serious at the time. How are you just now? You're obviously better.
Yeah.
But and has your perspective on life been altered by all of this?
Well, I mean,
that's a big question. I know.
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's probably the biggest a challenge that I've ever had to face in my life. I mean, when you are somebody that's never had to go into a hospital, and you realize that your life can flip in one appointment. So yeah, it was pretty hard to be told that I have something that only 15 people out of 1 million have at the moment we're
Is there a name
speaking.
for it?
Yeah, so it's membranous nephropathy. So basically, it's autoimmune kidney disease, and the cure to that was to give me an immunosuppressant treatment. So we basically, it's a slow drip, and it kills the production, or stops the production of antibodies to allow your immune system to reboot. But I can't stress you that, when you have no immune system in the middle of a pandemic, the first thing that the doctor told me was like, you can't get out of your house. And I was like, listen, I have a 4-year-old at home that goes to school every day. What am I supposed to do? I'm like, I'm not going to be able to hug my kids for a year. Are you serious? Like, I mean, how are you supposed to do that? And in the end, I ended up living actually quite normally. I mean, I did all this treatment in Dubai, and I was in Dubai, and everybody was masked up indoors and everything. So it was fine. But being forced to be on the bench, like that, was, pretty testing. One night I had cramps so violent that I had to basically open every finger of my hand. So you think like, is this going to be my life? Like,
Your future.
Yeah. Is this going to I can't stress you that, fingers and hands are quite useful in what we do. So yeah, and my wife has been incredible throughout this whole thing. I mean, she's studied epidemiology when she was young, and so she knew how to talk to doctors. Because not only I was in Dubai, so all the doctors that I've met, I mean, I have a decent level of English, but when you are a bit shaken and we're talking about a subject that you have no idea about in a language that's not yours, half of it goes right over your head. And then I was really lucky also to bump into people in Dubai from Aviv clinics who have helped me through my recovery into doing 3 months of hyperbaric chamber treatment. So an oxygen treatment with a lot of different cognitive exercises at the same time, which is basically brain performance. And so that became my life for about 3 months, where I would go 5 days a week, 2 hours minimum a day, where I would meet doctors, meet neuropsychologic or neuro psychologists, dietitian, PT sessions, and that is really what helped me to get the head out of the water again.
So what was it like emotionally?
Emotionally, it was really hard. It was really hard because
tears were shed, I think.
Oh yeah, liters. We're talking liters. I remember I was in my hospital bed, and Thomas Bjorn texted me, and I left him an audio note, and I don't think you can even understand what I'm saying. I'm crying I'm crying that much. You're looking at pictures of your kids. Yeah. You think like, I remember also looking out the window, and it was just Dubai desert, and I was like, is this where it all ends for me? Like in the desert in Dubai, like, in an egoistical way, I was like, Nicolas Colsaerts is going to die in Dubai looking at the fucking desert. Yeah. Like, no, this is not the end I want. Yeah. This is not the end
And what are the symptoms of that?
Well, I had big oedemes, so I was doing water retention.
Right.
I had put on. I could basically feel fluids everywhere. The first symptoms were difficulty breathing. I had half of one of my lungs filled with fluid. I had multiple blood clots in my lungs, and I had put on 9 kilos. So my ankles were massive, and that exploded the week I was doing TV commentary at DP World. Mm-hmm. And one of the other commentators was John Morgan.
Right.
And you know John.
Yes.
I've known John 25 years. John is as goofy as it comes. And he was like, mate, that's kidneys. And I'm like, how do you know? Like, you don't think that John has a PhD in kidney disease, right? Yeah, yeah. But his dad did the same thing. Ah. And he was like, mate, that's kidney straight away. So he's the first one that pointed out that I had a kidney thing.
And that sent you to the hospital.
And a few days later, I ended up going to the hospital because I really struggled breathing in the morning, and the ankles weren't the only thing that tripled in size, but it's not that funny.
No, nothing's funny.
People thought it was really funny. It's like, dude, really? It tripled in size? I was like, yeah, but trust me, it has a funny shape.
Yeah. Nothing's funny about this, I don't think. Yeah, 'cause I was kind of worried about you. I mean, like everybody was. I mean, it sounded really serious.
Yeah, and when I came back to my first event in Abu Dhabi, I really understood, not how much I'm mean on this tour, but how much I'm part of furniture. Because everybody that I would bump into, they had seen what happened or saw the post that I had put out on Instagram was like, and I saw people looked at me and asked how I was with a different face.
Yeah, they actually meant.
Yeah, they really meant like, did we really just almost lose you? You know, I mean, you travel 4 weeks a year with the same guys, and you always think like
you take lots for granted.
You do,
yeah. When you've got your health,
100% you do.
Yeah. So, what's the future? Has it changed your lifestyle at all? I mean, do you make any compromises now? I'm sure you do.
No, well, yes and no. I try when I was going to start to play again from July. And I was like, okay, like if we do this seriously. So now I travel with not a physio, but my physical guy, because I also realized that when you don't play for 6 months or 8 months, practically, basically, if I wanted to come back, I needed to be ready. And, number one was being physically in shape,
right,
just to be able to, swallow weeks after weeks. And,
and muscles not being used for a while.
Yeah. And it's funny, I lost the first time I remember it was like, I lost 1 kilo of muscles just because I wasn't playing golf. It's really bizarre. And I'm not a gym freak guy at all. I mean, I don't really do gym. I do gym because I have to.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a religion for me, like some of the other guys.
Yeah. A bit like myself, really.
Yeah. When's the last time you've been to a gym, Danny?
I walked through one once.
Well, because the soda machine was on the other
probably
side.
The TV was on. It was a football match somewhere.
You couldn't see from the other side.
Yeah. Enough of that. Yeah. So look, going forward, I mean, you're going to, obviously you're back playing again. I mean, is it going to make any difference to your ambitions and, your perspective on life changes when there's someone like this?
No, I think I've been saying this for a little while. What I would like is to, still enjoy my golf, do it properly, still be competitive, and have the freedom to take the decision when I hang up the boots myself. I don't want to have the decision taken for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite a serene way to go. I touched a bit on TV commentary a little bit.
Can you see doing that in the future?
Yeah, I've always really enjoyed doing it. Then again, you're part of a team, which is something that I have a soft spot, or I can really identify myself in. And I like to transmit and share what I see, what needs to be done. Not like I don't want to teach people. That's not my goal, but to go like, listen, this happened because of this is this, and make people understand, the different layers that there is, not only in this game, but also in this profession. When you do this week in, week out, you're not here to tell the guy, what's on screen, but you want to give him something interesting where you catch his attention.
Yeah, you give some insight.
Yeah, that's why I liked also do radio, because radio I did the Ryder Cup. The first thing I ever did was basically radio the Ryder Cup in Gleneagle.
I remember talking to you there.
And I was like, this is really cool, because radio,
it's amazing how it works, isn't it?
No, but it's great because you kind of have to portray the picture to the guy that's in his car or in his kitchen listening. So you can add so many details into the coverage, which you don't necessarily do in TV, only if you do feature groups where you have a much bigger window where you can really, explain stuff a bit more in depth.
Oh, that's for the future, though. I mean, last question really is, what do you see yourself as a player? I mean, is there any ambitions left? Are you a goal setter? What's driving you on at this point?
I'm not really good for short-term goals because, that gets me too excited. And if I don't really meet that thing straight away, like it kind of frustrates me a little bit too quickly and I become impatient. The reason why I travel with, David, aka Hagrid, my physical guy is because I'm trying to put block by block. I mean, I came from from having basically not played for 6 months because I was in Dubai. It was like 40 degrees every day. So before I came to play Wales, I had played 9 holes and went and hit balls in the simulator 3 times. So I came from no golf whatsoever in 6 months.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do now is that I'm trying to put piece after piece together to get some sort of, not habits, but to get some sort of form again, which I actually showed last week in France. So things are slowly falling into place. I would like to be in obviously the end goal is to be in contention again and you know, to feel what's happening on the last 6 holes on a Sunday, because let's be honest, I mean,
you missed that buzz, have you?
Yeah, of course I do. I mean, I know myself well enough to know that I don't particularly like having these hundreds of scenarios in my head when you go to bed or you wake up in the morning when it's like 4 hours to go time. Mm-hmm. But you know, when you're out on the course and things happen and you see them happening and you kind of dissect what's happening, and that's one of the cool thing about this sport is that, you know, you can always take a step back because it's a slow sport. It's not like it happens quick. You know, you can look at stuff and really find a way to adapt to the scenario that's happening in front of you. Okay, am I 1 or 2 behind? Now it's time to press on or manage a lead, or, you know, that's what's really passionating about the sport.
Yeah, that's what's keeping you going, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, even just today, I went and played 18 holes on the old course today, and you know, I got off the gates today just hitting amazing shots, and there's nothing quite like it. You know, when you hit a 6-iron into the wind that draws the 5 yards that you had pictured, and it takes the right bounce and it goes to 3 feet. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's better than serving an ace on center court.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, like I was talking earlier. I mean, that's the artistic part of it. That's the best part of the game. It just is.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, seeing the bounce and when the thing that you see comes out feels exactly like you have anticipated, and it comes out exactly the way you want to, and it does to a T what is required. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's why it's the greatest game ever invented. Yeah.
Which is a good way to finish. I think I speak for everybody listening to this that we wish you all the best with that going forward. Certainly, I got a bit of a fright when you told me all about what was going on in your life earlier this year. So all the best for the future, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, Johnny.
Well, that certainly puts paid to the notion that professional golfers are all bland. Terrific stuff there from John Huggan and Nicolas Colsaerts, who I must say is also proving a very worthwhile addition to the TV commentary space. Well, that's it for episode 78, and we're switching gears on our next when we travel to the UK to meet the founder of the Golf Society, a group bringing respite and quality of life to those suffering with conditions like dementia and Parkinson's disease.
Well, Golfing Society is a social enterprise. And basically, it's about putting golf at the heart of local communities. And it's then about attracting people who are maybe facing a challenge in life to come and experience a happier, healthier, more connected life at their local golf club.
That's Tony Blackburn, founder of the Golf Society, next time on The Thing About Golf.